Hello everybody and welcome back to First Impressions. Whenever a new game comes out, it's always exciting to see loads of content on it, but it always comes at the cost of some spoilers. Watching a video almost always reveals something you might not want to know, and that's what we're hoping to avoid here. In this case, we actually got a 2-hour demo, and we'll only be covering content from the demo, so you don't need to worry about any spoilers from the main game. I'll be briefly touching on the story, but it won't go beyond some basic character and world information. When it comes to the Final Fantasy series, I'm actually more familiar with the earlier games. I've only played through 1 to 7, and I've briefly dipped my toe into Final Fantasy XIII, though that's a story for another day. I'm working my way through slowly, and I can say that while I'm not a die-hard fan, I do really enjoy this franchise, and when 16 rolled around, I don't know, I just had a good feeling about it. I can't tell whether it's because I'd recently beaten Final Fantasy VII and absolutely loved it, or maybe I just wanted something new to play on my PS5. But either way, something's been drawing me towards Final Fantasy XVI, and after playing the demo, I can say that my faith seems to have been well placed. Let's get on with it.
As always, it's a new world with new characters, and no ties to the other games beside enemy types, chocobos, items, and the beasts that normally act as summons, and they seem to have been the main focus this time around. Now, I'm not fully sure on all of this yet due to the fact this is just the start of the game, but these beasts are known as icons, and seem to have ties to the kingdom of this world. Now, the choice to bring back classic elements such as the crystals which give life to the world and the more medieval setting was something I was a little iffy on. As much as I enjoyed playing the classics, I will admit by the time I got to Final Fantasy V, I was pretty tired of these story beats, and I was so glad that 6 did away with them. However, it seems they are taking a whole new spin on the idea. I mean, the description for the game speaks volumes. The legacy of the crystals has defined us for too long. The total inverse of relying on the crystals to maintain peace and harmony. It's about as Final Fantasy as you can get, and if that hasn't convinced you, look at this shot of the Dragoon boss. That's like, wow, that's so cool. That's how you do a reference. So yeah, we're returning to a more traditional setting, but this direction allows for a new spin, so I'm okay with it. The first half of this demo is mostly cutscenes, with the second half letting you sample the gameplay properly. I won't lie though, I was so engrossed with what was happening on the screen I just didn't notice the length of the scenes. As well as setting up a really interesting story, the on-screen action and animation is absolutely incredible. I mean look, this is how the game starts, it's really fucking cool. After meeting our protagonist called Clive and his buddies, we end up witnessing 2 of the icons starting to clash, which absolutely tears up the battlefield and splits up our group. Clive is injured and this leads to the game cutting back to the past where we see a young Clive training to be what the game calls a shield, as obviously Blade was already taken. But seriously, a shield seems to be a special soldier who protects an important member of the royal family in the kingdom of Rosaria. Clive is a royal himself, but he was apparently rejected by the Phoenix, which seems to be the icon associated with this kingdom. They even have a shanty for it.
Louder, my friends! Louder!
Of course, I don't know what all of this means yet, but to briefly summarize, you spend the rest of the demo learning about Clive and his family, the rulers of this kingdom that is on the verge of war. In response to the threat of war, the king begins to make moves to ensure his kingdom's prosperity, which leads to the inciting incident for the story. I won't spoil what actually happens as it's some crazy stuff, but from the 2 hours I spent playing, I'm already obsessed with this world and its characters. They have all stuck in my mind due to their memorable personalities and great voice acting. It really is good. I know JRPGs with English dubs have a bad rep, but here it really feels like the Western version has just as much effort placed into it. Everyone fits their voices and the performance is totally natural. The dialogue is extremely well written, being witty and comedic without ever coming off as cringy, and the animations are great. You can really tell how these characters are feeling about even the most basic interaction. Clive is really damn likeable. He's the awkward royal, the one who does his duty and serves his kingdom, but doesn't like to partake in parties or drinking. I also think the active time lore system is fucking genius, so by pressing the touchpad you can view additional lore about your current area and the characters that surround you. It's a great way of letting the player get more out of the story without overwhelming us with confusing dialogue, or needing to bring things up unnaturally. It's a great idea and other games should copy it. That's all I've got to say on the story for now, so now the game. Well, Final Fantasy XVI is once again more of an action RPG, so if you were looking for something more traditional, then this might be an immediate turn-off. I'll say straight up, I think it works and it's pretty fucking fun. If you were into the more tactical turn-based style of Final Fantasy, this isn't really that at all. What we've got is a pretty kinetic game with some fun gameplay that can at times be a little button mashy, sure, but overall, I'd call this a win. This is the demo after all, so I'm sure there's a lot more to it as the game goes on, but it's a solid start for sure. You play as Clive for 90% of the demo. I won't spoil who else you play as, but for now let's just focus on him. In combat, Clive has a 4-hit combo and can use the magic fire spell to attack enemies at range. You can also use the magic attack at the end of your combo to extend it. Clive can dodge with the shoulder button, and if you manage to dodge at the last second, you can do a follow-up attack for some high damage. And it just looks so cool, the blue aura around Clive shining as you quickly dish out the pain. And I mean quickly, as by pressing circle you can instantly teleport to get up close and personal in an enemy's face by using the power of the Phoenix. This makes Clive lethal to all targets and means you can attack as soon as an opening arises, which is of course useful against bosses. You can equip items to directions on the D-pad for quick activation, and this is great in the heat of battle when you need an emergency heal or buff. There's also a special attack, just the one for now anyway, where if you press R2 and the corresponding button you can unleash high damage on the enemy. It's super satisfying. Against small fry, battles can be fast and frantic. Nothing really challenged me much in this first area, but it's the first area of an RPG, I'm not surprised. But it shows a lot of promise if all the regular encounters can be as kinetic as these. Bosses though. Well, this is where things get interesting. You get to fight a few bosses in the demo, and overall, they were pretty good. But it's an area I hope the rest of the game picks up on. Firstly, I think all the bosses have a great presence, and every fight tests your reflexes in different ways. Against the Morbol, you have to make sure to avoid its classically awful breath, whereas the Dragoon will lunge down from the skies at you as they are known to do. Dodging and quickly following up with pain is exciting, but your attacks don't really feel like they are packing much of a punch, and that's my biggest issue with the game as a whole. Now, I'm sure as the game goes on there will be opportunities to really lay on the damage with some rare spells and better equipment. And without spoiling anything, the other character you play as briefly has something of the sort. But as of here, I think they really wanted to teach you how to play the game at its most basic level before throwing shitloads of options at us. I'm hoping anyway. That's not to say there aren't things that I like, because there are. So, bosses have a stagger meter which goes down with constant attacking. That's pretty standard, but when you get to the halfway point of the stagger, you also get a small window to lay on some extra damage. It's only for a couple of seconds, but it's great in interrupting an enemy attack without needing to fully stagger them. When you do stagger them, this is your chance to really rack up the combos, as you gain a multiplier of up to 150% for every hit. So fast attacks are recommended to maximize the damage done. There are also these moments where the game gets a bit more cinematic and requires you to either attack or dodge when the prompt appears to get a free stagger. A quick time event basically. However, I don't really mind for two reasons. One, you have loads of time to press the prompt, it's not strict in the slightest, and also, the sequences are just so visually appealing, man. I know scripted parts like this aren't everyone's cup of tea, but I think since they aren't too frequent and don't always happen at the end of a fight, they manage to bring a sense of energy that other games don't provide without feeling the game is doing all the work for you. The bosses are good. I just hope the rest of the game continues to raise the bar with these. Outside of battle, you can explore to find items like potions or buffing items, and don't be afraid of using them as you can only hold on to so many before the game will just use the item to make room for another. I'm unsure if this will be upgradable, but I'm sure it will. Final Fantasy XVI's demo is pretty linear. I was surprised to see a world map as the method of travelling to the next area. Now since Chocobo are in this game, I'm sure there will be a way to ride to these places yourself like in, well, most games in the series. So I'm guessing this is just a way to keep the game moving at the start. The areas you visit do have hidden treasures to find, and it's not like you're running down a hallway. I found it to be more natural than that. This is just one of those things we'll have to just wait and see, as I feel it's impossible to know how this will play out, but I'm always down with keeping things moving. The other thing worth discussing is the icon battle. Well, there's one at the start and one at the end, and they are exploding in visual flair and, well, explosive action. Making the summons from the whole franchise playable in a huge scale battle is such a great idea on paper. I mean, despite the dramatic length of some of the animations, these guys were always some of the coolest things about Final Fantasy. So fuck yeah, put me in control of these guys, I want to wreak some havoc. I loved it as an idea, but I was curious as how they would pull it off, and the answer, well, it's probably the weakest part of the demo gameplay wise. Visually, fuck me, it's amazing, and the one at the start is just short enough that you can't really tell what's happening. But when you get a full taste of it later, you realise how shallow these parts are. Super impressive and stimulating from an animation point of view. All you do is aim with the cursor and hold triangle down, slowly draining the boss's health. I thought at first you had to spam the button, but no, you just move the cursor vaguely near the boss and it does the rest for you. I think it would have been better if it was more like Star Fox or something similar, where you could control the whole Phoenix and have to actually aim and avoid projectiles. You can dodge attacks and you'll have to at some points to avoid death, but that's about the extent of it. For the first time, it's enjoyable, but I bet these would really drag on in a repeat run. I actually died at the end of the fight when he charged up the huge attack. You're meant to focus on finishing the fight before he launches the fireball at you, but initially I tried to blow up the orb, I thought that made sense. In hindsight, considering the animation that plays after you either succeed or fail is pretty similar, you get hit either way, I didn't really see why the first one was considered wrong. Just a nitpick, but I thought I'd mention it anyway. I'm curious to see what later icon battles are going to bring to the table, because while this was amazing to watch, that was just it. I was just watching. But hey, if I'm going to be watching this and the many cutscenes this game has, at least it all looks great. Not only are they visually amazing, but the detail on the characters is top notch, and I love the character designs for managing to blend that classic Final Fantasy look with a more modern setting. The environments are pretty stunning and the lighting really does wonders for some moments. I played on performance mode by the way, as I always do when given the choice. Personally, fidelity just isn't that important to me, and I think this looks fantastic anyway. I didn't notice any heavy frame drops during my playthrough, but I did notice some small drops in a few areas. Nothing that bothered me at all, but again, just worth noting.
So yeah, I was pretty blown away by this demo overall. While there are some things I hope that are addressed in the final game, I'm feeling very confident about my decision to pre-order this one. I'm already hooked on the story, and I can't wait to sink my teeth into the main release. Final Fantasy XVI is shaping up to be one of the best games of this year, and I really hope that it delivers. Thank you so much for watching, and take care.